All right, good evening, listeners. Welcome to Motley Crude, episode number 35. I'm Kevin. With me this evening, I've got Andrew. How you doing, buddy?
Good.
Awesome. And then we've got Ryan with us. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Kevin?
Doing great, thanks. This evening, we're going to be doing our sort of after-action report for the CCBB Grand Tournament that we had last weekend, so Capital City Bloodbath here in Ottawa, Ontario. So we'll just be going over some matches, what we thought of the event, that kind of stuff. So before we get to that, it's been a few weeks because we had the event in the middle of there and stuff. So what's been new in your hobby during that time period? Let's start with Ryan.
Not a whole lot. I furiously painted a bunch of random units for my army for the tournament.
Yeah.
So my halberdiers, some of my characters, my dwarf mercenaries, and my ogre mercenaries all got done. That's about it.
I mean, most of your army was painted, right? By
It was
the time the
just
event
about
started.
half.
Yeah. Okay.
So none of my handgunners were painted. My outriders only had their capes painted. And my artillery was just not painted at all.
Yeah, but I mean, like, if you painted half an army since our last episode, that is a pretty significant hobby
That
thing.
is correct. I did paint
Awesome.
73 models in
That
2
is
weeks.
that is
So
better than me. Yeah, better than me for sure. But we'll get to that in 1 second. Andrew, what about you? What's new in your hobby?
I have printed. So there's a doubles event coming up here in Ottawa,
Yeah.
and you and I are playing in it. So I've printed a Blood Herd list. So I got all my Minotaurs painted, and now I'm assembling Dragon Ogres that I got at the last Red Dragon tournament. So I
Nice.
need 2 of those built for the list I made. So I'm working on that right now.
Okay, good. Yeah, we will be playing together. Me and you, Andrew, and then Ryan you're TOing that one, right?
Danny is. I'm
Okay.
not 100% free that day or
Okay.
whatnot. So
Okay, so Danny, occasional host of the podcast, Danny is going to be is going to be TOing that. Yeah, so that's awesome. So I'm also in that event. I'll talk about it in 1 second. So yeah, since our last episode, I continued on my journey to try to paint 120 hobgoblins in a month. Unfortunately, I didn't make it. I ran out of steam. Real life caught up to me. Like it was just too much. 4 hobgoblins a day may not seem like a ton, but it was just too much. I couldn't make it. So anyways, I painted like 50 of them before the event, and then I had some that were just sort of like undercoated for the rest because the painting requirement was sort of was lifted at CCBB. I'm still happy that I got 50 hobgoblins done. That's pretty good. I'll work on the other ones sort of at a more leisurely pace and not like it's pretty soul crushing to just have to go through 120 models and just slap base coats and contrast on them to get them ready for an event. Like I'm definitely not that kind of painter. Sorry, so that was not ideal. But yeah, for the next thing, I'm going to be sort of shifting focus to prepping my list for that doubles event. Andrew, I'm going to be taking this, but I'm telling everybody I'm going to be taking Wolves of the Sea out as opposed to Chaos Dwarfs. So I just need to basically, because I do have 1,000 points painted, I think I will add 1 model, like make a few changes. So I may need to paint like 1 or 2 models, but then I do need to base them. So like I've got a month from today essentially to get 1,000 points based. So I'm not actually worried in this case. And it'll be fun and exciting to take them out to an event for the first time. And yeah, I didn't play any other games. Like I had just a bit of a crazy week right up before CCBB, so I couldn't get any practice games in that week. But I did play 6 at the event, so it counts for something. We'll be talking about those games obviously in a few minutes. Okay, so let's talk just quickly, mention the news and rumor stuff. So obviously the Cathay Arcane Journal has been leaked, has gone up for pre-order, and I think is going to go out for like delivery at the end of this week, probably. So that is a pretty significant bit of news. We unfortunately didn't manage to cover it in a timely manner, but that's fine. That's probably going to be the subject for our next episode. So we're not going to comment too much on that right now, the news. So let's roll right into CCBB. Let's start with just a bit of an event recap. Let's start with you, Andrew, here, like as the TO and the organizer. Sort of, can you give us like the Cole's Note version of like what the CCBB event is, and specifically what the Old World / Warhammer Fantasy Battles events there have been like?
Yeah, so CCBB essentially was an event that myself, Chris Haynes, and another guy, Jason Sparks, started. Yeah, I think the first event was 2013, and basically we're running an event with the mindset of, what would be like the dream event to go to, an event that has like all the nicest amenities we can sort of um, provide the attendees within the budget we have. So, things that were important to us, we're having like a meal each day of the event. So like a good lunch, having um, bottled water, unlimited bottled water available to our attendees, a nice big air conditioned hall with, tons of space to put your models when you're playing your games and walk around the area without, bumping asses with the person behind you. Parking on site, having either a vendor or like we run a garage sale there, so then people can get rid of their great pile of shame, like just things like that, like all the things you can think of. It's like if I can go to my dream event, what would that event have? And that's kind of where we've gone with the event. So this is our 9th event. We lost a couple years due to COVID, but we originally started as a Warhammer 8th Ed Fantasy event. Quickly after we started that event, Warhammer Fantasy got AOS'd. So we switched over to 40K as sort of the main focus of the event. And then over the years, we've had various like quote unquote small games. So we've had like Lord of the Rings a couple times. We had a big X-Wing tournament a few times, just like shit like that. So we've always had that stuff there sort of on the side. With Old World coming back, we reintroduced that game last year pretty successfully. And then this year again, was one of the main 2 events that we ran at Capital City Bloodbath.
Perfect. And then just at home, if you were not tracking the event, we were around 30 players, just a bit shy there. 2 days, 6 games is what it boiled down to at the tables. Okay, so let's start with Ryan. What were your overall thoughts about like the Old World event that was run, and like did you have a good time, like all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So I had a blast. I thought it went really well. Like the hall was nice, the food was great both days. We had no one drop. So like, we started with 26 players and ended with 26 players. Didn't need to tag in the ringer. I thought the kind of overall like execution of everything went well and smoothly. I had 6, pretty awesome games. Got to reconnect with some of my opponents from last year, so it was a good time.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I also had a blast at the event. I said it last year, and I said it sort of before we actually hit the tables, as it were, at CCBB this year. But like, it is one of the like nicest events I've ever been to, for sure. Just in terms of like how it's organized, like the amenities, as Andrew was talking about, like it's like a convention type meal, like a business convention type meal that you get, not like a wargaming convention, but like as the food's good, is great actually for one of these events. Hall's super nice. So like I really enjoyed it. I had a blast. The terrain is also extremely fucking solid. All the terrain that Andrew's put together. Things were generally on time. So like it was just great. And then I had just want to had 6 good games. I want to shout out my opponents like Luc in my first game, Nick, Alex, Frank, Adam, and then Guillaume in my last game. Like it was just great to sort of to play with you guys and hang out with you guys after. Like it was just all around a really good time, and I'm just super happy that I went there. Andrew, what were your thoughts like on the other sort of side behind the curtain running things on how like the event ran?
I like honestly, um, it was super smooth on my end. I was a little worried, not having Ryan to tap into for like those weird esoteric like rules interactions that aren't just sort of the baseline game stuff, but
Yeah,
I was
He
able
stopped you.
to like I know, like I still like had to come to talk to you a bit, but like I know you're just more solid with the game than I am. So like I can answer like a lot of like the baseline stuff, but when it comes to like, when this unit is just a hairline in on this one and they over like all those weird things that come up, like
Yeah.
that's where I kind of like break down mentally. Um Thankfully like not really much of that came up, or if it did, the players worked it out themselves on the table before I had to get involved. Um, Otherwise, everything was like really smooth. Yeah, it was just really nice to see, that many old world players like really just enthusiastic about the game playing. So yeah, it was probably one of the easier events we've run there in like recent memory. So no
nice.
complaints.
Nice. And then like you mentioned it a little bit, but I was asking sort of about the running now, but like on the TO side, like did anything like were there any trends that you noticed, or are you planning any big changes from a TOing perspective based on what you saw this year? Like sort of what are your thoughts?
Um, I really I think like 1.5 did clean things up more than we give it credit for. I find like everyone seemed really in tune with those changes,
Yeah.
and looking at sort of the questions we had last year, and granted it was like a much newer game, so people were still kind of learning the ins and outs of it. Like this year it just seemed people like the players overall were generally more knowledgeable about like the game and the mechanics than previous versions, so it really made the running side of things very easy.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your questions properly,
No, no,
but
no, that does. And are you planning any changes for like next year based on what you saw? Like I don't know, a tighter comp for instance, or 5 games, or like that kind of stuff.
I think we're always have 6 games.
Okay.
People like, again, our event isn't on the cheaper side because of the things we try to provide to attendees. So one way, I know the 40K side of things, they have 6 games, and that's one of the reasons why we also have 6 games,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
if we don't need it to actually get a clear winner. But my mentality behind that is, if you're spending a lot of money to come play that weekend, why not play the most games you can? So
Sure.
even if we could probably get away with 5 games, I think I'd still push for the 6, even though, Saturday is a bit of a grind. But at least you walk away having like 6 games of wargaming. And
Yep.
some of these people, like myself, I'm a parent. It's hard to get away for this stuff. If I'm going away to play, sometimes that's the only time I get to play, and I want to get the most games in as I can because it might be a while before I get like out to another gaming event.
Yep.
So that's kind of why I think I'll keep it at 6.
Sure.
Comp wise, no, like I'm kind of happy with where it's at. We didn't see like any sort of the, like Cathay is currently the boogeyman going around, and we
Yep.
didn't see that. So it's really hard for me to comment if comp is needed on that list, or any potential new armies of infamy coming out with like the next 2 AJs.
Yep.
But like we've always been pretty comp light
Mm-hmm.
with our events, and I don't really see that changing anytime soon unless something like crazy egregious comes out. um but who knows what the future holds, like next events in a year. if some of the rumors are correct, we might be going into second edition already at that point. So like,
Yeah.
It's really hard for me to speculate on, a year from now what we're gonna do.
Yeah,
But like,
that's that makes
if all
sense.
things stay the same, there wouldn't be too much changes. I don't think.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Okay, cool. We did have some pretty, I think, good faction representation. Ryan, you want to like just walk us through that very quickly and then like give us your thoughts?
Yeah, so we had 4 Empire players, 2 of which were running Nuln. We had 3 Bretonians, 1 of which was Exiles. Every other faction, less the ones that I'm going to list, either had 1 or 2 players. However, we didn't have any Ogre Kingdoms, Lizardmen, Demons, or Cathay, likely due to the absence of.
Danny.
Yes, the absence of Danny, and I was going to say the Green Mountain
Yeah,
boys
Right. Yeah.
bringing up the Lizardmen.
yeah.
And so 12 out of 26 players were running Legacy armies or Armies of Infamy. To kind of break that down more, only 5 people actually so 5 out of 26 people were running Legacy armies.
Yeah. Okay. And then 7 armies of infamy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was like quite a diverse spread. Like I'll even use myself and the other. So I was running Nuln, as we'll talk about later, and the other Nuln player had radically different like interpretations of the same army built around the same constraints.
Mhm.
And I saw that with like, there were 2 high elf armies, and they were similar but not the same. And there
Yeah.
were 2 wood elf armies, and they were quite different. 2 beastmen armies that were quite different.
Agreed.
So, same thing with Tomb Kings.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
anyway, I just found that there was like a lot of variety, but everyone still like came to play. Like
Mhm.
not like it was not the try hardiest of things, but no one showed up with like triple dragons or whatever.
Yeah.
But people showed up with good, well thought out armies, and they were all different. So
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like the internal sort of internal to factions list variety that we saw was great. There was no, I think, 2 armies that were the same. Just off the top of my head there, like in the same faction. I mean, and then like having that wide faction representation, I think is great. I like that. No more than 4 players on like the top fact on like the most popular faction or whatever. 2 of which are like in a radically different army of infamy is all good news. It means that a lot of things are viable. It means that a lot of things are competitive for sure, which I think is positive. Nobody wants to see. We went to an event last year, all 3 of us, and then that's no fault, of course, to the event. Like it just happened that way, where we had 10 Warriors of Chaos and 10 High Elf players that were like 30% of the field or whatever, and you don't want that kind of situation. So everybody being split up like that, I think is just good stuff. And then I'm super happy to see. I grouped them together there, but like basically half the field being either funky armies of infamy or legacy armies when taken together. I think that's super. That's also fantastic and great. Yeah, Andrew, what are your thoughts on just like faction representation and like variety of armies that you saw?
I think it was really good. Like, I kind of was secretly hoping there would be one cafe player just so I can see sort of firsthand. But
Hmm.
overall, I think we had like a really good spread of everything. Um, you know, like the strong armies and sort of like the not so strong armies, and just seeing how they mesh together. I mean, there was even a dark elf player who, like, I thought I was the only one, so it was interesting to see him, especially like looking at his list. When I first saw it, I was like, well, I didn't rate it in my head very highly. Just because there was choices in there that probably I wouldn't make because it doesn't like mesh with my play style. But he actually did like fairly decent. I think he was around middle of the pack. Um, so it made me like go back and look at maybe incorporating some of those units into my army in the future.
Mhm.
Yeah, like a big block of crossbow dudes, which I was always like kind of like, I'm not sure. And yeah, like a unit of the warlock guys who
Yeah.
like seem okay, maybe a little bit overcosted, but like after seeing how he was using them and sort of like the utility he was getting out of it, I was like, oh shit, like maybe I can, slip them in one of my lists sometime because they're
Mhm.
actually not too bad, especially with the way like this player was using them. So yeah, it was cool to see that like people, I think a lot of like online like the discourses, everyone kind of falls into like meta net lists.
Mhm.
Um, and like I guess the thought behind it is like, well, that's the best way to play. But seeing like the spread of armies we had, how different even individual armies were in there, and seeing how well those armies went, even if they were like sort of like not quote unquote net lists, it was
Yeah.
really like interesting to see. And as a reminder to maybe step back from that online discourse a bit because it might not always reflect like the reality of playing the game.
Agreed. Yeah, yeah, and that's a super interesting point. And like it goes back to the faction variety stuff that we were talking about before of like no two armies in the same faction even looking the same. And you're right. Like the discourse online is all about those net lists, but when I look at our top 5, for instance, none of the 5 players had what I'd consider, the typical like the Beastman, for instance, army, right? That you'd expect. They were all some sort of skew, which is super interesting, and I think just speaks to the game um, not being a game that's won at the list design phase, being really like a skill expression type of game. With some tight movement, some good target selection, some good deployment, really feeding you those wins more than just like your list. Where if I may download the best list in the world and then just build it and run it, but if I can't run it properly, then it's not going to save me. And you have the tools if you're not running that best list ever to still do very well at a GT because of how the game is structured. So I think it's all super positive stuff. Um, we'll talk about about balance and stuff right away. So my next point is so I'll go back to Ryan for this one for my next question. So how do you feel about the results overall at the event? Like, so our podium was Beastman first, Chaos Dwarf second, Tomb Kings third, and I may extend that to just telling you guys that like Tomb Kings came in fourth, and then Dwarf Royal Clans came in fifth at the event. So like Ryan, do you think that like our podium overall or placings reflect well the overall state of the game or like the global meta, quote unquote? Do you think it's a reflection of our local meta or like individual player skill? Like anything, how do you think that the results sort of shake out in there? And then anything else you want to shout out in terms of results?
Yeah. So to kind of the question at hand, um, the what I was trying to say, like it definitely reflects a combination of player skill and the like local slash regional, or you could even just call it like the CCBB meta,
Mm-hmm.
because we have the intersection of like it was Petawawa, Deep River, north of North Bay, the Northeast United States, and Western Quebec, kind of all smashed together.
Kingston,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, there were guys from Kingston. I forgot about Connor for a second. Um, and
How could you?
anyway, so like I think it's a very accurate reflection of like what we would expect to run into locally and regionally.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm hesitant to draw conclusions about the overall game because the other problem, as we were discussing before the show, right, is like, you know, between us basically just like we basically just ran the event to the contents of the match play guide.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, between how, we implemented the missions and the secondaries and the scoring.
Yeah.
So for those not tracking, is we implemented exactly as per the match play guide, which meant pairings and placings were based on aggregate differential score in the kind of 6-0 differential system Games Workshop published, which obviously favors winning more over just winning. And we'll kind of discuss this a little bit later. But so, when you look at that and you look at kind of the top cut of things, there is a certain amount of like durability that floated to the top because like Tomb Kings, Chaos Dwarves, and Dwarves in particular, those things are better able
Protect points.
naturally to both win games, but win games with a higher differential. So like basically within the conceit of the meta that was created by the tournament pack that, was created for this event, all the things in the top of the event make sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not going to draw conclusions about the wider game because, you go a few hours in any direction and it's being done slightly to radically differently, which is going to change what
Agreed.
the meta outcome is.
Yep, for sure. We are seeing a little bit of that like fracturing of the community, like on a regional basis, with different regions sort of having some like dominant ways to play for sure. And I think that totally is like a fair assessment of how our results don't necessarily reflect what would happen in another part of the country or the world even. Yeah. So to answer the question at hand, like I don't think our podium reflects like the quote unquote overall meta of the game. Of course, Beastmen and Chaos Dwarves, like they have play. They're like competitive factions, but they're definitely not the top factions right now. And then like to me, this just reinforces that there is no real global meta to this game because like communities are fracturing a little bit, as I mentioned, on like at the regional level and have wildly different packs and ways of playing, which obviously will impact results. I've mentioned it before. This is not, and I don't believe in this event and our other events reinforce the fact that this is not a quote unquote list building game. It's a game, that's won at the table through good planning, effective movement, and it's also a game that has a lot of variability. In terms of like you're throwing few dice with next to no rerolls that are extremely impactful on how the game sort of plays out. And then it's a game that also has like a ton of viable builds. And that's something I mentioned earlier there. Like we have our top 5. None of them are your quote unquote typical build for that faction. So I think this is all super. Yes, it's all super interesting. It's all very reflective of like a local thing rather than a global thing for sure for me. One thing I do. Go ahead, man.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, kind of a distillation of your point really is like the Warhol meta and real life are not the same thing. Because when you reimpose the constraint of having to actually own the army, everyone talks about 3D printing and people just like creating all this stuff. It's not happening, or at least it's not happening yet here. So, there is definitely a disconnect between the like online discourse of people just throwing pixels at each other versus, when you need people to show up with actual models, they're showing up with what they have, and not these, perfect created in a lab armies that only exist in Warhol at this point, basically.
And then the reality also of a Warhol event is, in a number of cases at least, it'll be, here's your 100 people from around the world who are the most motivated to go to this online event, who are sometimes, depending on the event, part of like a gated paid for community to join the event also. Like, so there's just a lot of factors in there that and that's not a negative thing. Like, I mean, like it's just a fact, right? There's a lot of factors which pull you away from the local scene of Warhammer that you're probably experiencing at home. Yeah, and then Ryan, the other thing I was just gonna point out there as like a cool fun factoid for people is that we had a Skaven player who finished 7th at the event. So I think that's a cool little tidbit there, because they're definitely not seen as a super viable faction right now globally. They're like generally. So congrats to Nathan, I think it was, that did well with them. Andrew, what are your thoughts on like how our results like are speak to the meta, or like how do you see just results in general for the event?
It was interesting to see, what list actually did make it to the top. Having Beastman win the event. And I think last year too, that same Beastman player used a similar list.
Yeah.
It was very
it was like 8th or something last year. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like very chariot heavy, and like Razor Gore heavy. Like, it was interesting to see like that kind of do well. But I think you touched on it, was that the armies that did sort of rise to the top were, very durable. So like Cleary with his Tomb King list, and you with your Chaos Dwarf, like max toughness beef list. Like it's interesting to see like those are the ones that actually like did very well and were able to sort of, take those top spots.
Yeah, for sure. And that may have been a factor of like how the pack was constructed and all that kind of stuff, but and how the scoring was factored. But yeah, there is a bit of a trend there for sure. Okay. So let's just move on to this is going to be the me and Ryan show now for a bit, because Andrew didn't play, but let's talk about games and performances. So Ryan, I'll start with you. So can you like just give us your sort of global, like your individual performance for the weekend? Like, how did you do? Did you meet your objectives? What were those objectives? Like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so my kind of goal for the weekend was to go like 4-2,
Okay.
which is fine. I went 3 2 draws and a loss, so
Close enough. Yeah.
sure. Yeah,
Same
close
difference.
enough. Yeah, if you count a draw as half a win, then sure.
You made it. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, so I think it went really well. I had to play the mirror match against the other Nuln army, and they went first and shot me off the table, which was like not even like there was no surprise or anything. There was no counterplay. It was just, this happens.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's the Picard moment. You can do everything right and still lose.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
how about your weekend?
Yeah, I mean, when you've got like, I don't know, 10 cannons on the table and one guy gets to go first and they basically never miss, yeah, it's gonna hurt for sure. Yeah, so my event went very well. So I finished second in the event overall, so I'm super happy with that. I've been like on a bit of a roll lately with our last few events here locally, so I won that RTT, the podium at the other GT that we have before. So and I know my list very well. I've done a lot of playing around with it, like fine tuning and practicing. So I was actually like, I thought I had a shot for top spot, like definitely like for top legacy or like top 5. I was quite comfortable, but I thought I could shoot for the top. Looking at the list before the event and stuff like this, I was pretty confident. So I came close. I came second, and obviously, like, I'm happy with that. That's a great result. So yeah, that's how sort of overall things went. Ryan, do you want to give us a quick overview of what your list was like?
Absolutely. City State of Nuln. My general was Hans von Lohenhacke. Engineer BSB and a captain. The the BSB and a captain hung out in a unit of 28 halberdiers with the Griffin banner and shields, which had 2 detachments of 14 handgunners, 2 units of 6 outriders, 2 cannons, 1 volley gun with gun limbers for Vanguard, a Doom Seeker, 3 Imperial Ogres with light cannons, and then 14 Dwarf Mercenaries with heavy armor and shields and great weapons to be kind of Hans's bodyguard. That's my army.
Awesome. You so can you just like out of curiosity tell us how the Imperial Ogres and the dwarfs did, because those are never things that we see on the board generally. So
the Imperial Ogres, when I played them correctly, were amazing. Like
okay.
there was a couple times where I deployed them like out of position and they just were kind of useless and died.
Sure.
But just because they have an 18-inch range, but their gun doesn't. But the gun doesn't have ponderous, and they have a 6-inch move. So, like, basically, like they have a 24-inch threat range. They can move and shoot with only a -1 penalty if they hit. Oh, and that was the other thing is there was a lot of like I need to hit on 4s, and like I roll a bunch of 3s type
yeah.
thing.
Classic.
So, that kept happening because they're such a small unit. They're only 3 models.
Yeah. A lot of
Um,
variance in 3 dice. Yeah.
Exactly. So, but most of the time, they'd get a couple rounds of shooting, they'd get stuck in combat, they'd survive for a couple more turns. Like I got a lot of value out of them. There's one game, I think it actually half the reason the game was a draw was because the sergeant for the Imperial Ogres rallied on Snake Eyes from fleeing.
Nice.
And then because he was alive and not fleeing, they were above 25% because there's only 3 models.
Yeah.
So they gave up no points. And then he like heroed his way back into the game and like killed some silver helms and like did a bunch of other crap.
Amazing.
So yeah, that was a nice like 133 points that I got a lot of return out of. And then the dwarf mercenaries had the Master Rune of Hesitation, which is a big deal on them. And in 4 out of 6 games, basically they meant no one ever, like people wouldn't even attempt to fight my general.
Yeah.
Like
That's good.
Hans was just there with his 14 best dwarf friends, and people were just like, I Master Rune of Hesitation, they're deployed well. I'm just not even gonna go after this. So it kind of worked out to my favor that they wound up being, what's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, like a good deterrent. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, that's 190 points for Hans and 230 some points for the dwarves. So
Yeah.
it's like just under 500, or like a little over 400 points that I was not losing most of the time because it wasn't making it into combat, but no one was trying to fight it either.
Sure.
And when it did get into combat, it wouldn't die, and then Hans was just like murdering people.
Yeah. Beast mode. Yeah.
He soloed a unit of Cold One Knights. This was one of the games where the dwarves died, and it was just Hans left, and Hans just runs up and murders a bunch of Cold One Knights.
That's good.
Where I will say
Not
they
good. What are you
failed me
talking
is
about?
the unit's leadership 9. But because of the kind of economy of my army, I didn't give them the veteran upgrade.
Sure.
And in my game against High Elves, they were in this like Cold War standoff for the entire game against a unit of Dragon Princes with the Cloak of Beards. And like kind of like a forest between us. Like the dragon princes could like never quite make the charge, but they kept triggering terror tests by declaring charges.
Okay.
And like the last turn of the game, they fled on the second to last turn of the game. So like bottom of turn 5,
Yeah.
they fled, and then they failed to rally, and then bottom of turn 6, he caught them with a charge and they died. So like
Rough.
it would be like, man, I should probably find 14 points to put veteran back on this unit.
Yeah, probably. I agree.
But no, like the mercenaries, the Doom, like I mean, Doom Seekers are amazing, but Doom Seekers in an Imperial context is also something you don't see all the time.
You're
But
right.
I will say, like the 450-ish points that I invested in mercenaries in this army, like did a shit ton of work. I was super happy with all of those units.
Good stuff. That's awesome. I like that. Yeah, I like that you picked some choices that you never ever see. So that's really good stuff. Okay, so yeah, for my part, my list was a variation on the no magic flying circus chaos dwarf list that I've been running the last few events that I've been going to. So my general was a black orc on wyvern, a 3+5+5+ wyvern type guy with a great weapon. I had 2 seneschals on great tauruses at T6. With great weapons, 2 toughness 7 Tauruks, again with great weapons. Love my great weapons. And then I had a single Iron Demon, and then 3 units of like 32, if I remember correctly, hand weapon and shield hobgoblins with full command is basically the list. The list played pretty simple. It was the big bricks of hobgoblins play the missions very, very, very well, and then all the big gribblies the hobgoblins play the missions and then break the big gribblies on the other side through static combat res, because they're generally going to be static combat res 6. While I mass my high mobility, high damage output monsters against single units, usually infantry blocks and stuff, to get rid of them in one turn and just keep picking up units that way. So that's sort of how the list plays. How it plays overall and what it looked like. Okay, so Ryan, you touched a little bit on some units, but like overall, like any thoughts on how your list performed, and then what changes are you planning as a result of this event? Okay, I think Ryan, for some reason, is disconnected or whatever. So I'll just jump in, and then he can follow up after. So, so generally, I mentioned my placing there, so the list did generally very well. I'm happy with it. I did make one change that I'm not too happy with. Like I removed the Iron Demon. I added an Iron Demon in my list and removed a Toughness 5 Great Taurus. Like I had a weaker one in there. And then I reduced the size of the hobgoblins to also like permit that Iron Demon to come in. I'm not sort of overly happy with those changes, and I think I will be reverting back for sure, or at least changing changing that list up. Like I'm not going to be taking the Iron Demon anymore. We talked about it last episode when we were discussing like relative speed of units as like an important consideration when you're building a list. And this it caught up to me. I knew like I'd run some test games with an Iron Demon, and I kind of knew that was going to happen. But I just wanted to make sure I tested it. Like my goal was for him to support the hobgoblins, but I wanted to test it more thoroughly at like an event, and it just didn't work out. So yeah, I'll be changing him out because he doesn't synergize well with the rest of the list. In the future, I will probably try to like make all my bricks of hobgoblins leadership 10 by putting a hobgoblin con on foot in them. Like would be a fun one. Or just going back to the list I ran at the RTT with one extra flying Taurus. If I had to pick like an MVP for the event, I would say that all my monsters did very well. Like everything that was beef or wyvern did very well. And then the hobgoblins are just like absolute champs at playing the mission. So love those little guys. And then least valuable player, like I mentioned it, but the Iron Demon, it just didn't work with the list. So Yeah, that's it. That's it for me. So do we have Ryan?
Okay, so the way my list kind of panned out, the key changes I would consider making um, would be like squeeze blood from stone to just find the points to do these things, but possibly turn the captain into Elector of Sigmar
Okay.
for the prayer abilities and the extra wound. Um, find some ways to make to maybe get the armor of meteoric iron and talisman of protection onto my BSB. No real changes to the infantry block. In order to afford these things, I'm looking at maybe downgrading to only 1 unit of Outriders, but then like making it a unit of 8. Carrying on. Like these are just like nice to haves, but like I really appreciate what Frank did with the mortar, and I kind of want to find a way to put a mortar in my army. um, Same thing with like, are the ogres really worth it over a second volley gun? At, roughly the same points cost. Like those are some of the internal debates. Trying to find a way to put another engineer in so that I don't need to keep all my war machines near my like combat brick.
Yeah.
And then lastly, kind of the spiciest option is actually looking at ditching the great weapons from the dwarves, because 90% of the time they just went with hand weapon and shield. Like they were mostly there to like survive more so
Sure.
than to kill, and to give them handguns instead, so that
Ooh.
when they're chilling, not in the fight because no one wants to come fight them. Well, cool. Now they're shooting you.
Yeah.
So that's
Interesting.
that's kind of what I'm looking at with that.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see how that pans out for sure. And it sounds like you still have a little. Well, this is normal because you're like starting your journey with the army right now, but like sounds you still have a little bit of optimization to do and stuff.
Yeah, it's the conceit of like right around 2,000 points.
Yeah.
There's like 5 different ways I can build this army that all have things like. If I wanted to be really, really optimized, I wouldn't take the mercenaries.
Agreed. Yeah.
And then suddenly I have hundreds and hundreds of points to spend on
More
other crap,
cannons.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
So,
Okay. Good. Ryan, you want to give us a recap and like some highlights and stuff of your game number 1?
absolutely. So game 1, I played against Connor, who brought another Empire army, but it was what is the word? It was like a Kislev themed
Yeah.
grand army. Really nice army, very cavalry kind of forward. But it was grand army. But so he had a bunch of units of knights, a big unit of inner circle knights, and yeah, like some small unit of demigryph knights with his general, and like a couple cannons and stuff.
Sure.
And we were playing the 4 objective encirclement mission. So it's like the offset deployment zones with 4 objectives. It was a really tight game. I won, but it was like a 4-1 or a 4-2 or whatever it is, 4-2.
Yeah.
It was a very close game. But ultimately, like, my army is built to hold a bunch of objectives and get charged, and his army is just kind of throwing 5-man units of knights at me that die promptly. So it did not go great for his stuff.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing with that one was like we very rapidly diminished each other's ability to hold the mid-board objectives
Yeah.
due to
And then
like
you're just
degradation
staring
of
at
unit
each
strength.
other. Yeah.
So like I made some like early gains with being on 3 objectives, but then after that, I was just scoring on the one on my deployment zone, and he was scoring on like he had no scoring units left. Um, so like that was kind of an interesting like people love to talk about how you can get so many points in that mission, but once like casualties happen, it's a lot harder than it sounds.
For sure. Yeah, you're right.
And
Which
then
is why I really enjoy the hobgoblins, because they could take like 20 plus
yeah,
casualties and still score. Yeah.
absolutely. Um, but no, it was fun. But it was like he was running his army into an army that like is designed to to kill his army.
Yeah.
Um, so,
Yeah.
but
So
it
you
was a
met
great
your
game.
natural prey. Yeah.
Exactly. But as always, I played Connor at CTC. I played him at Bloodbath last year. We played 40K in Kingston together for a few years. So it's always great to have him out at events.
Awesome. It was reigniting an old rivalry. So that's good. Yeah, so on my end, my game one was against Luc. He had Grand Army Bretonians, and as you said, like it was on strat locations 4, ended with a 6-0 for me. So I won't spend too much time on this one. Like Luc was just like playing his first games with Bretonians, and he was like, "Yeah, I just wanted to play my Bretonians. This is what I had ready versus what I know is the optimal build. So I won't like spend a ton of time here." As a result, he had a Duke and a Paladin BSB on Pegasus, I guess. He had a Prophetess in a big unit of Knights of the Realm. He had a unit of 20 Peasant Bowmen, a big unit of 31 Men at Arms, 20 Knights of the Realm on foot, which you don't see very often, and a Trebuchet. So yeah, there was like I had a pretty big list advantage as I mentioned, because um, my army does well against foot blocks of infantry. There's no big issue there. And then all the tools that the Bretonians typically bring that scare me were just not present, right? So there was no monster slaying or ogre blade extra attacks with reroll dukes / baron. There was no great green knight. There was no cannons. So it was like I was pretty comfortable going in as a result. Just quickly, my game plan, like there's 3 things I wanted to do in this one. So the only thing that I was, mildly sort of concerned about was the peg bus unit, and the 2 characters going inside the BSB and the Duke, just because they can actually kill a lot of stuff. They got a lot of mobility, etc. So yeah, and I thought that they were going to be likely apart from the rest of his army because of how the speed, like relative speed, was working out for him. So I thought, first step of my plans, I got to catch these guys with a bunch of monsters and kill them early in the game. Second sort of item that I wanted to do was not get caught out of position and fighting blocks of infantry with like single monsters, or when I wasn't ready to engage them yet. Basically stay away from the 20-foot knights until the pegs are dead, the peg knights are dead, and then pick them up, pick the infantry up with multi-charges from multiple directions, right? And then the third step of the plan was like sit my hobgoblins on 3 of those objectives and then just profit, basically. And then sort of how it all played out, well, sort of look through a curveball my way and screwed my deployment up. So good on him. What ended up happening is he put his peg knights on a flank. And so I deployed to go catch said peg knights, but then he kind of surprised me by not putting his characters with his peg knights at all and deploying them to another end of the table, like the complete other end of the table, which threw me for a bit of a loop, and would have been a big sort of problem. Could have been a big problem in my side. Unfortunately, he just had like an absolutely disastrous round of combat with his 6 peg knights. So like it just in the end it didn't matter, but that definitely I messed up on that one. I should not have deployed like that, because like he was totally correct. It did throw me for a loop, so I should have been a little bit less aggressive in my deployment, a little bit more central, so that I could react if he pulled something like that on me. Aside from that, I mean, when I got rid of the peg knights because they couldn't kill my 5-man Black Orc tax unit, for some strange reason, despite charging them. Then like it was a bit, the game was a bit done at that point. Like the army didn't, his characters didn't have the tools for killing my army. His Duke was packing Killing Blow versus Monster Slayer, for instance. So I was able to pull off the rest of the plan pretty well there. Like his characters became surrounded, and I didn't quite table him, but like I think he had nothing at the end left except Knight of the Realm unit on foot. But it is what it is. Like he knew going into the game that it would sort of be like that, and we had a great game nonetheless. He did throw me some curveballs in there, so I really enjoyed it. So thanks for the game, buddy. So let's do, because he is listening. I know he will listen to this. Ryan, you want to do the your game 2?
Yeah. So game 2 was Chance Encounter, the table quarter deployment, with Domination, the table quarter objective. And I played Adam, the Dark Elf player. And got a sweet draw. We were within 63 points of each other.
Nice.
At the end of the game, so it was pretty awesome. Long story short, I did what Cromwell's new model army is apparently designed to do.
Okay.
And
oppress the Irish, or
I mean, it's up there.
okay,
but,
sure.
But I guess technically in this case, I was protecting them from seafaring raiders.
Okay, fair enough.
And so I just castled up in my table quarter, and my Doomseeker sprinted across no man's land, which was amazing. Died in a hail of repeater crossbow bolts.
Sure.
But basically, like, we had kind of a skirmish going on in the two neutral table quarters with my Outriders versus, kind of more mobile elements of his army. But ultimately, he spent a lot of time trying to hide his dragon and cavalry and everything from my big scary cannons, which basically meant that until bottom of turn 5, the dragon was like just not in the fight.
Yeah.
At all, because it was constantly behind things that also blocked its line of sight, so it could never declare charges or do anything. This was the game where Hans soloed a unit of Cold One Knights, which was funny.
Hans. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, dude's got 4 attacks, so
Yeah. He's decent. Like offensive output is decent. Survivability is man, but yeah.
That's what his 14 expendable dwarf friends are for.
Exactly. Yes.
And so, that went well, but ultimately, like, what kind of cinched the draw, or at least prevented me from losing the game, because he did like pick up the upper hand at one point, largely due to me losing my dwarf unit. There was a point where he got off Plague of Rust and then hit them with the summoning, and they just like evaporated. Because I had forgotten about the what are they, the lore, or not lore familiar, whatever the dark elf like let you cast off of a point on the ground 12 inches away from you, or whatever it is.
Yeah. Which one's that,
familiar?
Andrew? That item? The what? Sorry.
Focus familiar.
Yeah.
There we go. That one. So I got cut out by one of those, but
yeah.
Basically, because I was castled up like right on the edge of my table quarter, I was able to, kind of fight him to a standstill, and then during the last turn of the game, just like move my halberdiers and my handgunners out in a way that he couldn't respond to, but that gave me the most unit strength in 3 of the table quarters.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of picked up 600 points right there at the end.
And that got you the draw, yeah.
Or not 600, a little bit less than that. 150, 500 points.
Yeah.
But so
which
that's
is a massive swing, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But again, it was all about like biding my time and kind of letting him get sucked into fighting, while my guys were just trying to like hold, because if I'd taken the fight to the table quarters, like to try and take the table early, I'd
Mhm.
have been picked apart.
Yeah.
So it worked out. It was a really fun game. Um, he had some great tricks up his sleeve with the dark elves.
Yeah.
Um, and like as always, like the Doom Seeker was like the MVP of every game because he's 50 points and no one wants to kill him until he like runs up to your unit. then
Yeah. Yeah.
then then people get worried. So
Understandably so. Yeah.
but yeah, no, that was again like in hindsight, I probably the dwarf unit with Hans should never have been where they got picked up. Um, that was a mistake on my part. But other than that, like I think we both played pretty close to like the best game we could have, which is probably why the result was so tight.
Yeah. Yeah.
How was your round two?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, my round two was a table game I'm very happy with. So I played Nick against Eniad Grand Army Tomb Kings, and it was a 3-3 draw. So going into this, like I had a big score on my first game, so that set me down the path of maximum resistance for the rest of the event, like meeting all the great players we have here locally. So yeah, game two was against Nick. And he came in second last year at CCBB. He's like on my team for teams events. And Tomb Kings are one of the worst matchups for Chaos Dwarfs, and I think for a lot of armies actually. But and I've talked to, like we talked about this at length in like the Chaos Dwarf episode we did way back. So I went into it and I was pretty like. I knew I had to play a good game. Like this one, compared to my last one, is definitely not like a list advantage thing. So Nick was playing like not his typical Tomb King list. Like his special move, like if he was a wrestler, would be like big units of Boshapti, but there were none in this list. So he had double Tomb Kings on Dragon, a cheap level 1 caster on a horse. Like whatever skeletal steed or whatever, 2 necrosphinxes, a big unit of 40 skeletons, a unit of I think 6 chariots, like just with a bunch of combat res stuff on them, and then some skirmishers, like just some other like small units of skeletons that are easy to pick up. In general, I had a pretty good feeling about like like at the list level the matchup. Like the dragons were armed with, in his case, swords of might, so they're not actually that killy. I was pretty happy to see those. I was extremely happy to see a hierophant on a skeletal steed. Like whenever I see a hierophant on foot or on a steed, I'm just happy because there's a chance to actually get rid of it pretty quickly if you play your cards well. And then a lot of the annoying Tomb King bits were not present in that list. So there's no like caskets, there's no scorpions, no big units of Boshapti, which Nick likes, as I mentioned before. So yeah, so looking at his list, like I sort of had a 4-step plan in order to fight it. So like first thing, like most important thing, top thing, step number one is kill the hierophant. I mentioned a hierophant on foot or on horse is great because you could kill it. So my Tauruks are fantastic for catching them, just because they can charge 360, have swift stride and stuff like that. Pardon me. So yeah, so that was the plan. And then if I can't get a Tauruk to fight his hierophant, then the Iron Demon can actually do a number on those skeletal steeds just by pumping out a ton of shots at turn 5. So that was step 1. Step 2 was like I needed to mass my monsters to pick up necrosphinxes. Necrosphinxes, like their initiative's pretty low. You'll usually strike before them. They do have that one monster killer shot, but like if you've got multiple like writable like monstrous mounts hitting them at the same time, like they're just not defensive enough to be able to survive until they hit. And then like it is a lot of points on a single chassis compared to how resistant they are. So like I wanted to just gang up on those sphinxes. The third thing was I wanted to avoid that break of 40 skeletons like the plague. It gives up very little points. It's tons of work to get through them. They resurrect, which is annoying. You can't break them, so that's just like a pain in the ass. So I wanted to avoid them. And then the fourth thing is I was aiming to engage the dragons with my hobgoblins present, and multiple monsters in there, just to like stack up combat res specifically with the hobgoblins or on flanks and rears with the monsters. Just going alone with monsters does not work anymore. As it used to before 1.5, because they no longer have close order, so you don't get that automatic little boost to combat res. So I needed the hobgoblins in there. Then how it went is, so it was like a super, people call it cagey, like positional, big brain thinking type of match. Neither myself nor Nick really made any like big mistakes, and not a lot of stuff died either because it was so positional. However, it went pretty, like my plan went sideways pretty fast in this one. So my opponent only had a single level 1 wizard, as I mentioned, but like he took obviously the reserve move spell from the lore, I forget it's Lord of the Sands or Lore of Nekar or whatever there, like that one signature or that one spell that they have. However, he managed to like roll the big 11 plus on the reserve move for like the first 4 turns of the game. Like just every time he'd hit that 11 plus. And then so as a result, like essentially his whole army had reserve move the entire game. And then what Nick was doing is he was like basically moving his entire army out of my charge arcs and onto my flank each turn. So like it was just a big repositioning game. And me, like you mentioned, Ryan, in your game, like I was just biding my time. Like I was just like I knew he would eventually fail that big cast, and I'd be able to start grabbing some stuff out of his army. Unfortunately, like he did eventually use up all his luck, but it was too late for me to be able to implement my plan properly. I still managed to catch like a Necrosphinx, some skirmishers. Like it resulted in a tie. But like it was close to being a win though. Like I think I was 270 points up by the end of it. I just sort of ran out of time because of all those great casts that he got. And then there was like a heartbreaking moment in turn 6 where like I managed to line it up where the Torah could charge the Hierophant and those skeletons, like a 14-inch charge with movement 7 and Swift Stride, and that would have been enough points to sort of take the win. But then I flubbed the roll, so waited all that time and it didn't pay out in the end. So that was a bit heartbreaking. But like overall, it was a really good game. Really happy with it. I did, as per the plan, manage to get the Iron Demon lined up to try and take out his Hierophant, but like it just wasn't working out for me. Like I rolled 4 shots on it, like that kind of stuff. So so it was a really good game, but unfortunately resulted in a tie. So thanks Nick for the match. Really enjoyed it. Okay, Ryan, you want to talk about your game 3?
Yes. So game 3 was the Nuln mirror match. This will be relatively short. So my opponent take on Nuln had more of like a small tax-sized halberdier unit with Hans in it.
Mm-hmm.
A single detachment of 5 handgunners, 2 units of 8 outriders, 5 cannons, a mortar, a volley gun, a steam tank, and like 3 or 4 engineers. So we were in a situation where he had fewer drops than me. We both have an extra +1, so he wound up getting the +1 to go first, went first, and then like turn 1 or 2, I failed the lookout, sir. My BSB died, and like my interpretation of Nuln, the BSB is kind of the linchpin because it's what keeps everything immune to psychology and stubborn and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so really like it was just multiple turns of me getting shot with literally nothing I could do to swing the game the other way, because we were also playing the like 2 objective mission.
Yeah.
So every turn we just both get 30 points. Like the secondary was irrelevant.
Yeah. For
And
the record, I don't think Strat Locations 2 is a good secondary. Like
no, I like Strat Locations 2 needs a bunch of other things, but personally I'm probably just gonna turf it entirely.
Yeah.
But anyway, So like I just went for the moral victory of like I had his steam tank down to 1 wound left just from like shooting it with handguns because I
Nice.
had nothing else to do. I'd like
Yeah,
this
because
is
he
the
had
only
way
thing
more
in
cannons than
range.
you. He started and he
Yeah,
just blasted your
yeah.
artillery.
Like there was no thing I could do to like overcome how that game played out.
Yeah.
Because also if I moved anything further forward to try and say like cross the table and just like try to ram my infantry into his infantry, 16 outriders would just come in from the
Yeah.
flanks and shoot me.
And the
So
Hellblaster, yeah.
the Hellblaster was actually deployed in like a weirdly useless location.
Okay.
So it probably wouldn't have, but it could have for sure.
Yeah. Theoretically,
But
yeah.
anyway, like yeah, that game just kind of happened. It was nice. We're both like
Yeah,
Francois is a
Frank's
great
great.
guy.
Yeah, he's great to play with. Yeah.
Um, so it was a lot of fun. But yeah, I just made it my moral victory to try and kill the steam tank with pot shots, and I almost
There you
did
go.
it. So that's all.
Awesome. Okay, yeah. So my game 3, I had the grudge match, the grudgiest of grudge matches. So it was Chaos Dwarfs versus Dwarves, Royal Clans in this case. I was playing against Alex. It was, as Ryan mentioned, strat locations 2, so basically like no impact to the game. This one was like, it was definitely a good matchup for me. So Alex had like Royal Clan in general obviously skews towards like the infantry horde slash, well, the infantry throng of dwarves, let's call it. And that was sort of the archetype that he was running. So he didn't have any war machines. He had the horde of foot dwarves and just like some shooting in there. So I had a massive mobility advantage, and then I have enough offensive output in my army to like break his dwarven bricks. However, Alex is, you guys know him. He's a very good player, and I didn't want to mess around. I had a game plan. For me, the game plan was very clear when I walked into this match, and I just like needed to stick to it. And it was, I was more or less, quote unquote, like highly likely that it was going to be a win. So the core of Alex's list was 3 big bricks of defensive infantry. So Royal Clan warriors, longbeards, and hammers. Then he had a machine gun Thane, like the whatever exploding flaming runes, and the guy that has exploding hits there. Rune Lord and a Runesmith BSB, and then he had a ranged support wing of like a unit of Iron Drakes, 8 I think, 2 units of Rangers, and a big unit of Quarrelers. So basically, the game plan for me, there was like 2 steps in this one. It was pretty simple, and I think quite evident once you sort of play these kinds of matches. Like the first one, like priority number 1 was rushing in and killing that range support as quickly as possible, because it's the only part of the army that gives up easy points on his side. And then B, like the plink damage from all that shooting will eventually get stuff like Toruks and Tauruses if I just let him shoot all the time. So yeah, that was priority number 1. And then the second thing, like step number 2, is I needed to be very patient. Like dwarf infantry with all their defensive runes and then all the like defensive rules that you can slap onto them, like they mean business. And do not engage longbeards, clan warriors, hammers, etc. Until like you're in a position to win that fight. And in my case, like that meant that I needed to be patient, and that I needed to wait until all my monsters, like all my flaming bulls, were just in a position to charge one of those 3 bricks basically at once. You want at least 3, ideally 4 monsters doing the multi-charging, and then you can break them in a turn, and then it's time to go ham on like sort of the core of that army. And then it's not really a step, but like as I mentioned before, like I could safely ignore the secondary in this one, because strat locations 2 is irrelevant, and moving a brick of longbeards off of a home objective is just not a really super viable plan unless you've like basically already won the game. How that all played out, like great. I mean, I had such a massive mobility advantage that it was really my game to mess up. I went up both flanks hard at the start of the game to destroy the shooting support wing, and then rack up points like off of them, and that occurred over the first 3 turns. Managed to pull it off, no issues there. And then I stuck to my plan. I was super patient. Like I waited until all my monsters were in their right positions. I chart like I four monster charged the unit of clan warriors from like 3 directions, like obliterated in a round of combat. Then I did the same to the unit of longbeards after. I didn't quite get through them. I think I rolled maybe a little bit under stat, but like it's fine. Like I still got the job done. I ran out of turns to sort of finish the army, but still, I'm very happy with how I played it. Like it wasn't a particularly like hard plan and hard sort of follow up to go through, but like I did stick to it like from start to finish. And it was like just a kind of a game that's like it's a base hit. You just show up, you just do what you got to do, and you like nothing fancy, and you'll win it type of game. So yeah, but Frank did play it well, and yeah, yeah, it was great. It was great playing him. What's that, Andrew?
Alex played it well.
I said Frank. Sorry, I did mean Alex. Frank is my next opponent for game 4, but yeah, Alex played it very well. Okay, Ryan, you want to give us your game 4?
Yep. So game 4, I played Etienne and his Slayer army. So also royal clans. He had Ungrim. He had Hammerers, a unit of royal clan warriors, 2 units of Slayers, a Demon Slayer, a Dragon Slayer,
All the Slayers.
and the Grudge Thrower. No, not the Grudge Thrower. The Goblin Hewer.
Yeah.
Sick.
Swirly axes. I think that was it. And like he had tooled up the Demon Slayer and the Dragon Slayer, but neither of them had the Rune of Dishonored, which was interesting.
Yeah.
And I mean, to summarize the game, I tabled him less Ungrim, who had 1 wound left, which is the most Ungrim result of that game that could have been possible.
For sure.
He just continued to fail to die. But yeah, like Slayers are cool and unbreakable, and if you
match up
just
very poorly against the gun line. Yeah.
If you just shoot them, none of that matters.
Exactly.
And we were playing the diagonal one with 3 objectives.
Yeah.
So like from turn 1, like I was on all 3 objectives with outriders and handgunners and halberd block and whatnot. He did get into combat with the halberd block at one point and like gave it a run for its money. But like static combat res 1,000,000,000 really really puts a damper on stuff.
Yeah.
So that works out. And I had to be like real janky about like positioning my handgunner units to like stop flank charges and stuff like that. But no, it was a good game. It was quite fun. But yeah, I there was just like a heap of dwarf corpses
Slayers.
at
They
the
achieved their mission.
at the end of the game. Yeah, they've all achieved their life goal of dying.
Yes.
So otherwise, it was fun, and like had things played out a little differently or even a different deployment, like if we were playing like upon Fields of Glory with 3 objectives, you actually might have had more of a chance because then
You'd be
like
closer.
getting those unbreakable bricks on, like, just marching turn 1 and being there and whatnot would have mattered. But in this case, the diagonal deployment means you're starting, I want to say it was like 4 inches away from one of the objectives.
Yeah.
So like I was just on all of them at the start of
Immediately.
the game, and then it just went from there. So
nice. Good. So a big win for you. So my game 4, I matched up against your game 3 opponent there, Ryan. So I played against Frank and his null gun line. Great game. I really enjoy playing against Frank. So yeah, start locations 3. But like it was the 4th game of the day. Frankly, in like game 4, I was starting to be pretty sloppy there. Like I was getting pretty tired and sort of brain dead after four games of Warhammer. But nonetheless, so on paper, this one was a pretty scary game for me. So Frank's list, I know you described it earlier, Ryan, there, but like just to remind people, like he has 5 great cannons in there, a steam tank, a hellblaster, Hans with the almost minimum size unit of null troops, 2 units of 8 outriders, trio of engineers. So like 6 cannon shots will wreck the day of any monster. Especially ones that have limited saves and who rely on toughness, like mine do. That is some real bad bad energy to match up against. Especially in the mission where like you're in that diagonal deployment and you can start further apart than you normally would. So for Frank's game, so I played him before against this exact or very similar type of list to the one he brought to this event. So like I knew how to sort of play this very well. It's worked in the past. So basically like number one by far, like it's a two stepper in this one. Like number one is limit incoming cannon damage. Like there's no way around it. Like if I cannot find a way to do that, I will lose this game 100% of the time. So the way to do that is with a hill. Like if you're so player place terrain totally saved my butt on this game and turned what would have been a disaster into like an actual winnable game. And I think like it more often than not winnable, like a win game type situation. So yeah, as I said, player place terrain is pretty clutch. So the first thing I did is I grabbed the biggest hill I could find and I placed it as close to the center of the board as I could get, given the restrictions. Ideally, you do this with 2 hills if your opponent lets you. Frank didn't because he again, we've played this before. So and then turn 1, like so. During deployment, the way you play this is you place your monsters and your dragons if you have them or whatever similar thing you have in your army, like as out of sight as you can manage from the cannons, and then just sort of hope you go first. If you don't, that's fine. Like on your first turn, you hide everything behind the hill where it can't be shot at. On the second turn, you climb on top of the hill where shooting you is basically impossible, or is very, very difficult for the cannons because of how that's been FAQ'd. And then turn 3, you charge off the hill and just into their lines and then just panic route a bunch of stuff and just kill a bunch of stuff. Yeah. And then so that was like the big step 1 is sort of how to manage the cannon damage using a hill. And then the second big thing in the game was, you mentioned it, Ryan, it's strategic locations 3 in the middle. I have 3 big units of hobgoblins. Like I need to park them on those three strategic objectives, and because he doesn't really have anything in that null gun line to really shift them off. And if his his guns will be shooting my monsters, and if they're shooting hobgoblins, like I'm totally fine with that anyways. So, and they just start racking up points like crazy if you let it build over the game. So how did the game work out in actuality? So about as good as it could have. So I pulled my hill plan off, like basically exactly how I wanted to do it in theory. Unfortunately for me though, this battle was drawn battle lines, so like the triangle deployments as I mentioned and as Ryan covered, which is kind of perfect for Frank's build, or like like a cannon gun line, because your opponent has to go from essentially corner to corner of the game of the board, which like because of basic geometry is like the longest possible way to get across the board, so you get more time to shoot. So I deployed well. I limited the cannon angles with the hill as good as I could with only a single hill. But then my opponent got first turn thanks to Hans, and then did some damage. It was fine. Turn 1 and 2 worked out perfectly. I hit behind the hill. I hopped on it. It was all good. And then the problem was because I was corner to corner on the board, turn 3, I couldn't charge him. I was still too far at the center of the board to his back corner. So like I needed to spend turn 3 sort of moving into the open right in front of all his cannons, which was definitely like a daunting prospect. And like just fraught with a lot of risk, but there's no options. I either kid the whole game or I had to do this. And So yeah, I definitely rolled a few extra like 6-up armor saves that I probably shouldn't have, but like because I had managed to limit the damage moving into that position, I managed to make it across the gauntlet of cannonballs without taking too many losses, and then I just terror bombed, panicked, killed like the gun line off the board, and it was pretty close to being a tabling at the end of it. The hobgoblins, as per plan, sat on those 3 objectives and just collected their sweet 180 points every turn, and then yeah, and that was that. So yeah, good game overall. Frank played it exactly as he needed to. I played it exactly as I needed to, and it turned out as it most times will, I think. Okay, so Ryan, you want to cover your game 5?
Of course. So game 5 was against John, who had high elves. He had been my opponent in round 6 last year with wood elves, and won best painted both years. So
Nice.
interesting cat. Drove up from Boston.
Okay.
So anyway, we were playing the hill, which is a fun life experience. So he had a character on a griffin, a prince on a griffin, an archmage, like Warden of Safari, with a bunch of Swordmasters of Hoeth, a unit of Sea Guard, unit of Silver Helms, unit of Valyrian Reavers, uh, Dragon Princes. That's really about it. Now that I think about it. Oh, and some Sisters of Avalon and a handmaid, like 10 sisters and a handmaid. So he kind of caught himself at the end here. Long story short, I won this game. It was a close win. It was a 4-2. But for whatever reason, he looked at my big brick of halberds and went, "Well, none of my core has enough unit strength to like counteract that," and decided to just not attempt to take the hill. And like even before we deployed, like he deployed his Sea Guard, and I'm like, "Hey man, like, do you understand that it's proximity and then unit strength?" And like, anyway, it was a great game. And he at the end of it kind of saw the point I was trying to make, because he hammered me with those swordmasters and pushed me off of the objective, but didn't push me far because it's a 9-inch diameter or 9-inch radius circle. So it took him 5 turns to get my unit out of the circle, which meant I was getting 100 points, both player turns for
Yeah.
5 turns. And I just feel like if he had followed the Swordmasters with the Sea Guard, one, they probably wouldn't have died to copious amounts of outrider shooting. And two, he'd have started to get those points and probably would have turned the game into a draw, if not a win for him. So anyway, that one was kind of like the game played well, but my opponent made like a fatal mistake before the game started.
Yeah.
By just not attempting to go after a huge amount of points. But at the same time, like, he made me fight for every point after that. Like, this is the game where my general wound up fleeing from a failed terror test and getting caught by dragon princes.
Yeah.
And like his griffin prince was wrecking through some stuff. I had him down to 1 wound by the end of the game, but he still, took out my war machines and some of my handgunners and whatnot. it's one of the only games where my halberd block gave up its full points. It didn't die, but it was fleeing and below 25%. So it gave up 100% of its points. And that unit only gave up points in 2 games. What else happened? Yeah, and then just like, and the Doomseeker didn't die. The Doomseeker killed like 3 units, and it was just like running around unkilled. This is also the game. Like, this is the game where the most Warhammer stuff happened. Like the Imperial Ogre rallying on Snake Eyes and like getting himself back in the fight.
Yeah.
So it was a very good game. There was just a really bad mistake that was made that cost my opponent a chance at winning the game.
Yeah.
How was your game?
Yeah, that happens. Game 5. So my game 5 got pretty contentious on a number of issues. So just like out of respect for my opponent, I think I won't cover it. Suffice to say, it ended with a 5-1 loss. Like for me, I lost game 5. I'm gonna leave this one out, and I'll pass it right back to you for game 6, Ryan.
So game 6, I played against Chris, who had Orcs and Goblins. Also an opponent I played last year, so we had another great game. Just one of the things I really like about this event is like reconnecting with kind of the same group of
100%.
people. Didn't mention that earlier, but so Chris had Black Orc Boss on a Boar Chariot, Black Orc or Orc BSB on a Boar Chariot, big unit of Black Orcs, big unit of regular Orc Boys with Warbows, a unit of 30 Night Goblins with Hand Weapon and Shield, and obviously 3 Fanatics, and then another 30 with Archers, 3 Fanatics. He had a Wizard in with the regular Orcs, and he had a Goblin Shaman with the Night Goblin Archers. And then he had a single Doom Diver Catapult. And we were playing Upon Fields of Glory with Baggage Train now for the last mission. So this one ended in a draw. It was a super tight game. It skewed towards me early because I went after his BSB. Like, I won the roll off to go first, and I went after his BSB Chariot.
Sure.
And so on turn 2, the BSB Chariot died, and it's a heavy chariot, so it's unit strength 5, and it's right next to his general.
Oh no! Yeah.
So the general panics and almost runs back towards his side of the table. So like the general just doesn't become relevant again until like the end of the game.
Understood.
And then like the hand weapon and shield Night Goblins get shot so much that they eventually take a panic test and start to run away. Hans and his dwarf friends seize the initiative and just like bum rush the archer
Went to
Night
town.
Goblin.
Yeah.
I lose 6 dwarves to fanatics,
Yeah.
but then lose no more dwarves and just obliterate the Night Goblins.
Nice.
But the Black Orcs just came thundering across the table, charged my ogres, wiped out a cannon, and then I wound up in this situation where my handgunners and halberd block were trying to fend off a weakened but still threatening unit of Black Orcs and the unit of regular Orcs, and like that combat went back and forth. Like by the end of the game, I still had my halberd block and like 1 unit of handgunners and like Hans and friends, and he had like half a unit of black orcs, and his general was on like 1 wound and like stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it was a very close, very bloody game.
Good.
But like I really appreciate that you actually I run into so many orc players that like don't push the black orcs at you, even though they brought like a big rectangle of them.
Yeah.
So I actually really appreciated that, like,
They
he
got in combat.
leaned into orc and it worked for him. Like
Mhm.
he leaned into the conceit of the army, and
Yeah.
it kind of favored being played that way. Um
Good.
so no, it was a really fun game. I wound up with both controlling both of our baggage trains. Yeah, it was a good time.
Awesome. Okay, yeah, and then my game 6. So I just come off a loss. I was still in third place, so there was like no big issue because I did have like 4 strong games to start off. So I was pretty like happy overall. And then I saw that I matched against Guillaume. Another great guy to play against. Really enjoyed it. But that one I was like, oh, this is good because it was like definite list advantage for me on this one. He was playing Heralds of Darkness, so chaos with no Chaos Dragon or Demon Prince, and just a lot of cavalry, which is like exactly the kind of target I want to see. Still, like Guillaume's a good player. He came in third at CCBB last year, so like he knows what he's doing. So I couldn't, it's not going to be necessarily like a walk in the park either there, but like I definitely felt good based on just list comparison how I was stacking up. So Guillaume in his list had level 3 Sorcerer Lord in a big knight like bus with I think 11 Chaos Knights or something. He had a BSB on a chosen chariot. Then he had another smaller unit of Chaos Knights, 2 units of Marauder Cavalry, a Warp Fire Dragon, and then 2 units of Chaos Warhounds. So looking at his list, like it was pretty clear to me what sort of needed to happen in this game. So like the number 1 priority was the Warp Fire Dragon. It's kind of the perfect target for me because it doesn't have a lot of combat res and it's not a character, so it can't challenge out monsters that hit it. So tossing all my monsters at it, it's worth a lot of points. I think off the top of my head, it's 365 or something, or anyways, it's close to that. So sending all my monsters after it to just collect those points was like number 1 priority. The second priority is the big block of 11 knights with the Chaos Lord, everything. That's like, I don't know, 700, 800 point unit. And it's also the perfect target for me because knights, low volume of attacks, not that tough to actually wound and do damage on, and worth a shit ton of points. So like I just like for my list, I just love to see knights show up. And then the third item in my game plan was his chosen chariot with the BSB, souped up with a bunch of upgrades, Gaze of the Godsing, like nonstop all game. Like this is a significant piece that can do some work. So like I needed to, he can also obviously declare challenges, so you can't hit him with multiple monsters at once. So that one I needed to respect. My plan was to engage it when I did have the hobgoblins present to just stack combat res on it. Like for instance, my wyvern on war boss will do work, but it's almost like a 50-50 when they're fighting. So I'm pretty confident, but as long as I get the hobgoblins in there to just stack some good juicy combat res. How did it all work out? Oh yeah, sorry. Before and then all the other units, like the small unit of knights, the horsemen, the hounds. These are like exactly again the kind of targets that I want. So I was not too worried about them. These are just things that I'm going to pick up during the game. So then, how did it all play out? So yeah, so I was very patient. I waited until I got my 3 or 4 monsters lined up to charge his Warp Fire Dragon. He saw it coming, obviously, and he was like, "Well, there's no hope in hell that I'm going to win this fight." So he fled with it. Unfortunately, because of the direction and a poor roll, I just ended up picking the Warp Fire Dragon up essentially for free. Then those 4 monsters turned around and then charged his knights from the front, rear, and flank, like the big night bus, all at the same time. I just obliterated it in like a round of combat. And then after that, I was sort of left. It was basically turn 5 at that point. I was left with he was left with only the chosen chariot, which hadn't gotten into combat yet. And he said, I've only got my chariot at this point. Like screw this. Your whole army is still kicking. So we just basically called it there. That one finished as a 6-0 for me. So again, I really enjoyed playing Guillaume. Like we've talked on a number of occasions. I just never got the chance to actually roll dice together. So I was really happy to do that, and look forward to playing him again. So that concluded the event for me, and finished overall second as we discussed. That's basically it. Cool. So we've gone through all our games now. Let's start to wrap this one up. Let's start with Let's start with Andrew today. Anything you wanna shout out in terms of wrap up?
No, just thanks to all the people who came and supported the event and played. It's really nice to see that many people come together, and like even between rounds, everyone's talking, tactics or list building. Like it's just a really fun vibe, and I appreciate people coming and supporting the event because we do put a lot of work into it. We try to make sure it's a very enjoyable experience for everybody. Even like we had, I think, 2 people come up from the States. So you'd mentioned there was a guy from Boston. And I think there was also a dude who came out from Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So I
the
don't even know how.
player.
Yeah, so I don't even know how they heard about the event, but that's really crazy to see people coming from pretty far away. Those aren't short drives to get there, or flights are expensive if they flew. That's really heartwarming. Hopefully if people have the chance, check us out next year, or come try out the teams event we're gonna have. I think we set the date for May
2nd and 3rd.
2nd and 3rd, yeah. So if you're interested, come check that out. But just big thanks to everyone who came. It was awesome. It was awesome seeing everyone playing.
Perfect. Ryan, anything you wanna shout out?
No, again, thanks to Andrew and the rest of Canhammer for putting it on, and I look forward to seeing how this all shakes out, and I'm intending on helping Andrew run Canhammer team tournaments, so you'll see me around doing rulesy stuff instead of playing.
Awesome. Thanks for my part. Thanks to Andrew for just running a great event. It is a lot of work. You painted a ton of terrain and stuff. So, thank you for that and the team helping you and helping the broader event out. Thanks to all my opponents. Again, I had a really good time. Aside from that, I'd like to shout out the event on the 27th. That's happening, I believe, at the Red Dragon. Make sure you sign up your buddy and go play some doubles. I've never actually been in a doubles event, so I'm pretty excited to try that. And then, of course, I'm looking forward to the team tournament in May. So, so that wraps up our episode. Next time, as I mentioned, we should be discussing the Jade Fleet unless something weird happens. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for sticking around with us, and see you all next time.